So Mary and I have not known each other for very long, but in a brief conversation, it turns out that she has a really interesting role in organizational change, and I think it's something that is really appropriate and applicable to much of what we're doing. And for me to try to describe it, to take away from her talk. So, Mary Conahan.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone. Thank you. I was asked kind of an interesting story. MacTech last year was my first MacTech conference. I was an attendee. I came with my team as a group, and we were attending a scripting session. It was like Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I walked into this Apple scripting class, got completely lost in the first 5 minutes, didn't have the right version of Xcode. So I was completely lost. I was like, well, I could sit here for an extra 50 minutes, or I could just go get coffee. And so I decided to go get coffee. And tried to immediately erase that this was a plan of failure, because I couldn't keep up in the Xcode class. And bumped into Ed, and kind of told him about my experience and what I was doing, and he asked me to speak. So I'm returning to MacTech this year as a speaker. I'm really grateful to be here. Any anxiety or nervousness that you sense from me is a concern that I won't be able to get on paper the vastness of my experience, and that I won't be able to convey that to you. So I'm going to ask you guys for your assistance in 50 minutes of trying to explain all of the intricacies of service desk management and all that's involved. And what I'm going to try to do is not only explain my experience to you, I can get started here with an introduction, but also just kind of a philosophy that I've come up with that might help to change your thinking or your mentality or your approach when it comes to integrating these types of tools. So I explained what brought me here. It's my second year at MacTech. My background, I was an Air Force medical technician. So I did aerospace medical. I ended up as a triage nurse and working in a pararescue squadron right in the crux of 9/11 post-wartime. I was deployed a lot. I was activated a lot. And basically found my niche in being able to work under high amounts of stress and be able to make decisions. And I had really good training and I had a really good team that taught me how to make decisions under pressure. And I've been able to kind of bring that into an IT environment kind of organically. I was working for a software company that wanted to move from 650 employees to 1,500, and they had a very small IT team. There was only 12 of us. And they were getting swallowed and outnumbered. They didn't know what to do. So they decided to implement a ticketing system. It was a failure. It didn't work. Nobody used it. Clients were using it too much, and the IT team wasn't using it enough. So I went in there and kind of, as a force multiplier, kind of reined everyone in, burned a couple of bridges the first time doing this, I'll admit. Learned some really, really important success secrets and how to ask people to continuously trust you and do favors for you. When I say that, I mean I wasn't an IT security engineer. I wasn't a system administrator. I had to interface and really get good at approaching them at the right time to get my tickets done and to get them to the right people and to make sure that clients were being served and that the IT team wasn't feeling so much pressure that they weren't getting anything done or the right things done. So I did that, a very large software company, and now I currently work for Sports Warehouse. So I was with them for 3.5 years, and currently am now at Sports Warehouse. Started from the ground up and built the ticketing system for them. They didn't have one. They are currently expanding to Georgia. They're located in San Luis Obispo, Germany, and Australia. They own 9 subsidiaries: Running Warehouse, Tennis Warehouse, Apple Warehouse, Riding Warehouse, our Cyclery, Skate Warehouse, Inline Warehouse, and I'm probably missing a couple of warehouses, but we're basically a sports equipment reseller on a lot of different verticals or platforms. We have about 960 all Mac devices, an inventory management system that is built on Pascal, which is hilarious to even say out loud, but it works. It's very effective, and it's free. That's how we manage all of our inventory coming in and out of all the warehouses. And an IT team of 5 people. And it's very effective for a couple of reasons. 1, we have a really great ticketing system. 2, we have a really great team. And 3, it's Apple, 100% Apple. So if it was a Windows environment, I would need 3-4 times the IT team or staff that I have at the warehouse. So that's a little bit of my experience and background. I spent a little bit more time on that because it is my second year. Everybody kind of knows each other here, but I am new to the community, and I just want to tell you guys thank you for welcoming me to your community, all the side conversations. It's been a really good experience for me. And let's get started. So we have to remember what a ticketing system should do. Techs really like the word should. Client comes to you and says, such and such is happening. You go, well, it shouldn't do that. That's not how it works. It shouldn't do that. And so that very quickly became my least favorite word as an implementer. Telling the engineer that it's happening and then telling you that it shouldn't be happening. So this is what it should be doing. It should be communicating, saving time, reducing effort, increasing efficiency, and providing forms of documentation. That's what it should be doing. And I missed the most important part, which is it's supposed to be keeping everyone. The fact of the matter is, as far as the business is concerned, everybody doing what they're hired to do. That's it. It's supposed to be keeping them doing what they do best and not spending a whole lot of time interfacing with IT to make sure that that's happening. My environment is a web help desk server on a Mac Mini with an ARD installation local to the server. ARD is for asset management. We have a Monkey server with Managed Software Center installed via Deploy Studio on every Mac that we use, and then of course web help desk for ticketing. Let's see. Okay, this is just like a how-to on kind of some topics that we're going to discuss today, like how to improve engagement, how do you increase ticket submission. The common complaint is that users don't want to put in tickets, and I don't really have that problem, and it might be because I've very clearly communicated to everyone at my company that, how should I say this? This comes from my triage background, so I'm a little bit more assertive and I feel a little bit more comfortable telling and treating everyone like, you're bleeding, you've lost certain rights to tell me what to do and when it's going to happen. So this is, I understand you're bleeding, okay? Welcome to everyone that comes to see me is bleeding. So have a seat right there. I'll take care of you in the time, in the order that the ticket is received, and I will resolve your issue. And so there's a lot of sort of emergency room management. This is very important to me. It's as important to me as it is to you. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. I'll do the best that I can to resolve it as quickly as possible when I have more information. And that's always the key, when I have more information, which is not going to happen right now because you're bleeding. So let's get that managed first. So getting the right information always helps users to be a little bit more cooperative and letting them understand that that's what this is about. Getting the right information, getting the ticket in there as quickly as possible so that we can get it to the right people. And I explained to all my users that that process is absolutely critical in making it faster for everyone. So, yeah. I have a riddle for you. This is a triangle riddle. Has anybody seen the triangle riddle before? Anybody? Okay, so you have 3 moves to turn this triangle upside down. I'll give you a couple minutes to look at it. And I actually didn't provide a solution. So you guys can keep thinking about that. Okay, so sort of some of the basic things about service desk management is having core values. And obviously my values come from the Air Force. It was kind of the basic of how I became a person and how I decided to interact with people professionally. And how that works is integrity first. You're going to be flexible, but you're going to tell somebody if you don't know, and you're going to let them know that you're going to find out. And integrity in everything. If I don't know, I'm not going to tell you that I do. I'm not going to throw anyone else under the bus. I'm not going, if there's a problem or a repeat problem, I'm going to do the best that I can to focus on and stay to the solution. Not what got us there, what the problem, just stay clean and just let the person know you're going to resolve it as soon as you can. And you'll get back to them as quickly as possible. But always have integrity. Service before self. So service desk or service desk management is about serving people. So you have to have that passion. You have to understand with respect that This is a 50-50 here. I'm going to show respect for you, you're going to show respect for me, and be dedicated to that, and then having excellence in everything that you do. We all benefit and we're served best when we share the responsibility to collaborate. So everybody has to be on board with this implementation and making it successful. And the biggest pieces of that is trusting and understanding its use during the implementation. So that's the challenge, right? I have a picture for you guys. Go ahead and call out if you let me know what this picture is supposed to be. Besides a candy corn.
Candy corn.
I showed my little brother this, who's a product manager for a company, and he told me it's a candy corn.
It's the part you can never attain.
That's what?
It's the part you can never attain. At the top.
Okay.
At the top.
At the top, the part you can never attain, okay?
Broken guitar pick.
I like that.
A Dorito. It's a
So for me, the intention was to convey, this is a mountain, okay? And where we're looking at people within an organization, they're going to put themselves on a certain part of this mountain. You got people that think they're on the top of the mountain. You got people that think they're on the bottom of the mountain, the middle, anywhere in between. And there is a break. There is a space between the top of the mountain and the bottom of the mountain. And the bottom of the mountain is the majority of the company. Those are the majority of the people that you see. The top of the mountain might be that VP or whatever who thinks that they're on the top of the mountain. And these are personalities that we're going to have to deal with in IT. They're the ones that are going to ask for the exceptions, not want to put in the ticket, what have you. They might even be your IT team. They might be your security team. They might be the novice tech that thinks, whatever. These are going to be people in our organization that we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to convince to buy into our ticketing system and to work collaboratively with our IT team so that everything goes smoothly. And they are separating themselves from the rest of the organization with that theory or that philosophy. So what I like to do is turn it upside down on them. Not directly, not to their face, but put it in perspective. Okay, if those people are now, if this was an iceberg, they're at the bottom and they're holding the organization up, but they're not at the top anymore. And so we have to really, when we're faced with very challenging people within an organization that don't want to be a part of the collaboration, just kind of keep this in mind. Just perspective for you. You don't have to share this with anyone. But as an implementer, the psychology is that you're going to find out with any implementation as an IT person, or anytime you have an interaction, what side of the triangle they're on, and which direction the triangle is. And you're going to remember that, because that's how you're going to change or reshape your approach with that person. And that's what it's about. It's not about rebuilding, it's about reshaping. Because rebuilding takes way too much time, and it's not an opportunity that we'll really see in real life, because everything comes with, you're the 50% and you bring your 50, but the 50% out there, you don't really have control over that 50. So you're going to have to work with it. So you're going to reshape it. Find out who these people are and work with them. And never, never, never try to change anyone's perspective of where they are in the triangle. Work with it. And so the way that I work with it when I'm implementing service desk ticketing systems, and when I'm walking into organizations as the new guy, basically trying to get everyone to comply and to trust this new system, I keep this in mind. I find out where people are, and then I prioritize. I restrict access to everyone. Not everyone gets access to the ticketing system. It's established as a privilege. The people that get access to the ticketing system manage or supervise other people. And we do that so that you don't get swallowed or inundated by users. IT professionals are outnumbered by the users that they support. This is just the reality. The organizations that I serve are about 650 employees trying to go to 1,500. And the IT teams are very small if they're not outsourced. And so they need to set those boundaries in an appropriate way with service in mind. And letting people know, you guys outnumber me. We need to do this the right way so that everybody can get the help that they need in a timely fashion. So you grant access to managers and key users in the beginning, and as you grow, and as you say, this is who's going to need this, then you can grant access to more widely to people who maybe need access to a particular service, need permissions regularly, manage people who need to change phone permissions, for example, or email accounts. Then you grant access to those people. So not everyone on the customer service floor gets access to the ticketing system. That's not a good setup. Don't do that. I wouldn't recommend it. If you are an organization that has that and you don't get a choice, we can prioritize. So the way that we set up the priorities, if that is the case where everyone has access, is you turn off, I don't know if this is on this slide, turn off email submission. Don't let people email submit to your ticketing system. You can do that. They allow that. Make them put a ticket in the interface. Teach them to do that. That's probably one of the best ways that you can decrease duplicate ticket submission. Duplicate ticket submission is one of the biggest problems I see on IT teams when everyone has access and everyone can email IT whenever they feel like for whatever. That distribution too widely basically doesn't give anyone an opportunity to think about what they're doing before they hit send, and you want to decrease the influx of that behavior. You want them to be able to talk to their supervisor or talk to their peer and say, hey, my computer's not working. This isn't working. Mine's not either. Okay, let's tell the supervisor, maybe the internet's down. We don't want 40 tickets that's down from the customer service floor. So say hi to your friend, say hi to your supervisor. If everybody's experienced the same issue, then that escalation automatically through the organization will get one ticket submitted to IT if they don't already know, which they usually already know. And an internet is not a good example because you can't submit tickets if it's an internet outage. So that's the last line here is passively all tickets by default should come in as a level 1. If they can submit a ticket, they can still do work, some semblance of work. Okay, they might think that they're bleeding, but they're not yet. If they can submit a ticket, they can do work. It's not that their computer's down and that they don't have internet. And those are very critical things that we take pretty seriously. And hopefully don't happen too often in your organization or the ones that you support, because that's a sign of bigger problems if that's the case.
That's awesome.
Okay, where are we? So I think I already discussed this. Positive reinforcement. So you promote the ticketing system as a privilege, you give it to certain people, and you absolutely now are in a contract with those users. You cannot let them down. If they submit a ticket, 5 minutes, they need a response. You can automate those responses if you want. You can make sure that you can have a service desk person if that works for you. If you're a consultant, make sure that you have notifications, however you want to receive those notifications from your ticketing system. But your contract says, the client is trusting that they took their time to submit the ticket, and now on the receiving side, you have to keep that contract and make sure that they receive some sort of communication to let them know, are you bleeding? Okay, I'll help you right now. If you're not bleeding, you can wait a second, and I'm going to do what I can to assist you. So keep that in mind. Make sure that tech teams understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. If you have tech teams that have a hero mentality and they want to be jabbered, emailed, text, and all of the other ways that they can be communicated to across all of the tools that they have within the organization, those people need to understand that when they're not there, that person is not being served. Okay, so if you're sick or if you have to be at home with your child, I need to make sure that my clients can submit a ticket and then they're not emailing you. That's not a good, move away from that. Don't let your clients have access to you 6 or 7 different ways. Eliminate it. If you're using a ticketing system, this is how they contact you. Unless they're bleeding and they don't have internet and their computer's not working, there is going to be another way that they'll either come find you if you're in the same building or they'll give you a call. And have a phone number available for them, because those are important things. We do not want people not doing their job. That costs everybody money. It's not what we want. Okay, agree. This is the one really important thing I've found in building ticketing systems, is you have to agree on location. If you're one office, which from what I've heard by talking to people, that is absolutely That's a blessing. That's never really true if you have a ticketing system. Agree on your location. And what I mean by that is as simple as make sure that everybody agrees what that location is going to be called and that it's in shorthand. Because in the drop-down menus in ticketing systems, you don't have that many characters. And so you can't have running warehouse Europe, running warehouse Africa, where it doesn't work. It cuts off the end. So you have to have like RW Europe, RW USA, RW Georgia, or however you want to set it up. But you need to have a shorthand way of referring to your locations that everyone has to agree. And this is the part that really can't be changed later in ticketing systems because your assets, your clients, your techs are all centered around location. Some ticketing systems will make you think it's centered around company, but then when you get deeper into using the tool, you find out that's not the case. Locations can't be duplicated. You can't have two locations that have the same name. So if you had running warehouse and then you had Europe, Australia, Georgia, that's great for running warehouse, except now I have tackle, Europe, Georgia, Alaska, or whatever. And so then I have to name each location identifying both the company and the location. So it starts to get messy. Companies don't even make sense anymore. It's like, why do I even have a company if I have to identify both the company and the location in the location's name? So pay special attention to that with your tools. And so when you're setting up your deployment services, make sure that you have a location tag in your deployment services or your directory. We have it in Deploy Studio under the location fields for computer information. It's like the second or the third computer information field is a location. If you do not agree on the location and you start deploying items with different location names and the syntax does not match, you now have okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You have a deployment and you all agree that it's going to be RW USA, no spaces. One tech accidentally one day does a deployment and he does RW space USA. That syncs to ARD, which syncs to Web Help Desk, and now you have two new locations that mean the same thing that are now categorizing in your database two different computers, two different groups of computers. So then you have to go in and move the computers and make sure you change the location and try to delete these. And then every 4 hours it's syncing your ticketing system, and now you have all these crazy locations that you can't find in any way that makes any sense unless you go into the SQL part of your database and get it sorted out. Don't do that to yourself. Agree on location, make sure that doesn't change, and make sure that that matches all of your tools. So that's one of the most important parts. Everything else can be changed later, for the most part. Ticket status is another one that wastes everybody's time if this isn't correct. There isn't a default for waiting on user. And so techs waste and spend a lot of time looking at tickets or going back into tickets to try to see if the user's responded. So build into your system a waiting on user option so that the tech selects waiting on user as the ticket status. The ITIL framework will have default status types. It will be pending, open, closed, resolved. I think there's the fourth, or I think there's a fifth one. So hopefully you purchase a ticketing system where you can add ticket statuses, and you can set different parameters to those. It will be a limitation if you can't, but create a status that's waiting on user, or pending if you want to call it pending. That's the ITIL framework way to do it. And then when a user replies, set up another trigger so that that status changes to user replied or open or however you want to classify it, so that you don't have to spend a lot of time going back to tickets and waiting for user reply. Text, it's an amazing thing. They'll spend a lot of time on that, and you don't want them doing that. So that's that. Yeah, because they want to resolve the ticket. They don't want to wait on the user to reply, so they keep wanting to click on it. Okay, here's one of my favorites. If you're going to push users to use the dashboard, which is what you want to do because you don't want them to submit tickets via email, you need to make the tickets really simple and straightforward. I'll show you an example. This is a Web Help Desk example. These are all the request types, okay? So a user goes in to submit a ticket, they log in the dashboard if they remembered their password, which is always the first challenge. Getting to the website, that's the first challenge. Where was the website? Oh yeah, my IT professional bookmarked it for me. Okay. What's my password? oh, it's there. It's saved. Okay. And they get here, and this is what happens. They get to the help request, and they select IT request, and once they figure that out, because they have to figure out which one to choose, they get hardware support, and it's another decision they had to make. They didn't know which one, because they want it to go in the right category. They're trying really hard here while they're bleeding. Then they have to select peripherals, then they have to hit repair requests, then they have to fill out all of this right here, you know. And then finally at the bottom they can hit save. Don't do that to people. That helps you, that doesn't help them. Don't do that to people. This is the best way to get them to not submit a ticket. I don't have an example of a simple one. Okay, it might be later in a ticket or in a slide, but on my ticketing system, let's just look really quick. I have IT request, and then a whole bunch of other options that if they're a sophisticated user that needs that option to go directly to the correct tech, because I set an automation for that, attach that ticket type, they know what to choose. No thinking required. But if they're everyone else who, you know, doesn't use it regularly, IT request, and then underneath there is another one that says XYZ. Why? Because Web Help Desk sorts these by alphabetical order, so if you did other, it'd be in the middle of all your other request types, and that's really annoying. So we have an XYZ category, which basically means, I don't know, you figure it out. And so that's the client's opportunity to put in a ticket as quickly as possible so that we can figure it out for them. And on the back end, the tech will tag the ticket. They're like, oh, that's a such and such, their email's down. And they'll tag the ticket on the back end and change that classification, and then send the user a note. Hey, for future reference, it's this, and let them know what it is. And so that's what we do when we audit. We go back and audit about every 30 days. We make sure that the tickets that are coming back or being reopened are not because IT techs are closing tickets. We make sure that clients are submitting tickets to the right request type, and we go through all the XYZs, and we make sure that they're properly tagged to the right ticket type, and then we make sure that managers with permission and budget request, abilities are taking advantage of using those requests. We don't want them doing that. So we make sure that they're within, they're staying within their budget. Let's see, what can I say about that? These are the biggest ones that I've experienced. There's many, many more, but these are the biggest ones. And then that's the end of the talk. That's at least the end of the slides that I prepared. So that's kind of just like a beginning of my experience. I hope that was helpful. Does anybody have any challenges or questions that they would like to ask me that I didn't cover? Yes.
We also use, and I implemented,
Nice.
Web Help Desk at my organization, run it off Linux VM. Do you find running it off a Mac with that ARD backend? Do you find that running it off of a Mac with that ARD kind of backend in the server helps? Is there a cool hook that helps? Also, what do you feel about users using the dashboard to open tickets, but then retaining the ability to reply via email?
What I found, and this was sort of a caveat, I allowed them in Web Help. Okay, so I'm going to answer your second question first. I allowed them to respond via email, but I turned off the ability to view those or something. So I wasn't seeing those requests, and that was an error on my part. So with Web Help Desk, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, and because I turned it off, I didn't use this for very long, but I wasn't always seeing their replies because the email reply didn't trigger any sort of an action. So the tech resolves the ticket, the user replies to the ticket submission request via email, and they say, oh, actually, it's not really working. With Web Help Desk and email, resubmission from a user did not trigger a reopening of the ticket. And so, There's no, yeah, there's no action for that. It didn't, you can't change that. Yes. Am I incorrect?
No.
Okay.
That behavior can actually be a blessing, though, because I have a very polite community of users, and they like to say thank you after I've closed the ticket, which then reopens the ticket. So I'd rather be notified, but not reopen the ticket. But like, I could see both settings being advantageous in certain situations.
You have to be paying attention to it, though, is the point. You can't neglect to pay attention, or you need to have some sort of a notification so that you know in case that person wants to give you an extra note that it's there. The other reason why we turn it off is we don't want users, thank you is okay, but we don't want you to go, oh yeah, now my cat's bleeding. You're like, this has nothing to do with the other cat. Like, you need to submit a new ticket for that. And, okay, everybody, as an IT professional, this is how I'm talking to you. But that's not obviously how I talk to them. But, you know, we want to, as politely as possible, to encourage them to submit a new ticket for a new problem. And then we're going to audit the ones where tickets are being repeated for texts or people or solutions that are not actually being resolved. As far as the VM question, Web Help Desk and ARD works really well, except as well as ARD can work. I don't recommend that tool, it's old school. We still have it, so we're still using it. That being said, it has not very many points of failure. The couple of exceptions I would say is every ARD update breaks the permissions on the file for remote management from ARD to the ticketing system. So when you use Deploy Studio, you finish your deployment or your image, and then you put it on the network, and you go to ARD and you say, is this computer here? Does it say hello? After 10.11, there was a problem with ARD and remote management saying hello, so there's a script for that. I don't have access to it right now, but I can give you a script for that. And you basically, it's a kickstart. You have to kickstart your new machine to get it to say hi to ARD, so you do that. So after you get through that troubleshooting there, it says hi to ARD, and then you go to run a system overview report, because you have to do that on every new asset with ARD. And that enters it into the database so that on the back end, WHD and ARD connect, and it picks it up, so it keeps updating the information of that machine. So you have to run a system overview report at least once in a new deployment. If you run the system overview report, and it fails, it's because there was an update, and it broke those permissions on that file, and that's not in the documentation. So go back and change and make sure your local user with your server on your Mac Mini and your ARD instance, so ours is like server admin is the username. Make sure that under your advanced file permissions, server admin is not just read-only. Make sure it can view all. So that's the secret of that. The other caveat or problem with this environment that I found, and there's really like only 3 things, so I really don't have a lot to complain about coming from a Windows environment. Like, this is really not that big of a deal, kind of annoying, but not that big of a deal, is when you update WHD on a Mac Mini, you have to log into the browser and log in with your Tech ID into WHD, otherwise it never restarts. So the documentation on WHD will say, stop the engine, do these things, download the package, log into your such and such, get the package has to be local to your server, open, run, install the package, and now start the engine. To start the engine will not work. It'll still have a note to users that say, sorry, we were down, contact your system administrator, until you log into a browser with your tech initials on the server that you're running WHD server. And they don't tell you that, it's not in the documentation, so I still remember the 3 minutes of anxiety when it didn't come back up on the 4th of July this year. So, nobody was there to see, but I was just like, this better come back on. And it was because I didn't log into the browser with my Tech ID after the update. So that's just, yeah. Another question?
Yeah, I was just curious, are you familiar with ITIL, I-T-I-L? And
yes.
You are? And
I have a certification in that.
You do have a certification, so do you feel that it is dated? Do you feel like it still holds water, if it's something that we should all be following and adhering to? Or is it just some old, dated stuff that is not really relevant in 2017?
I got my ITIL certification in 2014 or 2015. I think it still is the same content. Web Help Desk follows the ITIL framework spot on. It's my hero as far as reviewing ticketing systems in that regard. As far as, I'm biased. I think ITIL is an incredible way to learn how to communicate what and why and how these processes move. And I think it's absolutely critical in making sure that that language is shared and has an equal understanding amongst your teams. I also don't know how I could have implemented ServiceNow or Web Help Desk without having an ITIL certification, because procurement and knowledge base and all the other jargon, incident management and ticket priorities and why they are the way they are and why the status is, what's pending, what does pending mean, what is the difference between pending, resolved, and closed. That's important. There's a big difference between those three. I don't want text closing tickets. I want to resolve them and then wait 3 days and have it auto-close after the user has not gotten back to me via email or however to say it's not really fixed. And ITIL teaches that. And so I actually am looking at going back and getting an ITIL service management certificate, because I found it to be absolutely crucial in understanding the products and how to evaluate those products, and then also understanding IT teams and all their different dynamics, and then how to communicate amongst those and how to be a vehicle to communicate it. I have to educate a lot though. IT teams don't know ITIL unless they've gone and been certified. And so they don't know what procurement means, they don't know, and so I have to kind of be there for them in that regard. But I think it's useful.
I have a quick question. So we're talking about Web Help Desk, and Mary mentioned ServiceNow. Anybody running, like, are people running ConnectWise? Show of hands. ServiceNow? Web Help Desk? Anything? Zendesk? Okay. Anything else? What's that? Mojo Help Desk. What?
Nice. Mojo.
Autotask, sorry, right, of course. Anybody else? Sure.
We use Salesforce.
Salesforce, as a help desk.
Yeah, they have a help desk. We use it for our CR.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. I've worked with Salesforce, I've worked with Zendesk. I did implementation for the company I worked for before this with Zendesk. I'm familiar with Salesforce, but not the help desk part. Obviously, Web Help Desk, I'm not familiar with some of the other ones. I'm not familiar with Mojo.
ConnectWise?
ConnectWise, I'm not familiar with.
ConnectWise is pretty huge, and after we had been on it, we had a really awful implementation, and right after our implementation finished, and Max knows all about that, I read an overview online that said that it was really the best of a group of terrible solutions.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was really ringing endorsement for ConnectWise.
Wow. Doesn't
ConnectWise has a huge user community too, which like IT Nation every year. It's kind of cool. Anyway.
Okay, I'll get up on that and find out.
The term that I use a lot with ticketing systems, and I've been part of a handful of changes, is it's the devil we know, because they're all equally.
They all have their things.
Sure. I'm also ITIL certified, so we can commiserate with that if you like.
Do you feel that it's helpful?
Yes and yes. It depends how you use it. So ITIL for sure, like you hit the nail on the head with, it's all about using common terminology.
Yeah.
And don't try and put flowcharts in the face of all your users to say, thou must follow the flowchart or we'll never respond to you and things like that. And I've been part of implementations where it gets so prescriptive about the specific process that it just turns people off.
Yeah.
But if you can make it approachable, saying it's common language and just to make sure that we're all speaking the same thing, that's really important. For those who don't have the budget for either ITIL certification or the training material, because if you're in nonprofit or ED, or depending on where you are, it can be a little bit of expense.
Yeah.
There is, the EU actually put out a sort of open source compatible framework called FitSM, which uses most of the same language, and I've done an implementation of that. It's in French, English, and German, but that's what there is if you don't have the budget or the appetite for ITIL as well.
Those are some other options. Yeah, anybody else?
Yeah,
6 minutes.
Totally
Okay.
What he said with the ISO, like why not?
Oh,
Sorry, you have to raise your hand.
+1 for ISO, like why not?
yeah, if you can afford it. And there's so many resources online. Just brush up on it. You know, just make sure you know what these ticket statuses mean and why they're important, and why they're referred, the definitions of each, why they're referred to that way. Because that'll help you to shop for ticketing systems if nothing else. And it'll keep you from having to reinvent the wheel. You know, like I reinvented a little bit like my waiting on user when I did my ServiceNow implementation, and that was a really good idea. That was pre-ITIL, and it's still there. They use that, and it's great for them. But there's no need to do that if you understand the terminology out of the box. As little changes as you need. Yep.
We use BMC Tracker, which is about as fun as a case of hepatitis.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, and it doesn't have a very good knowledge base that we can use, and so we're trying to change our ticketing system because we want to reduce the number of basic service requests that are coming into our ticketing system. So my question is, have you had a chance to build out a robust knowledge base so that users have a chance to help themselves a little bit, as opposed to submitting a ticket for everything?
Yes, and my answer to that, it's easy with Web Help Desk. Because they don't have to go to the knowledge base portion to find a solution to their problem. How it works is if they select, so I'm going to tell you what my solution was, which might not help you because it's not the tool that you're using. But if they go to select, let's say my email's not working, an FAQ pops up, and it's like, please go see this article on the things that you can troubleshoot if your email's not working. And then it also have an opportunity to put notes. So if somebody selects a certain drop down on mine, say example the email thing, there's a note that says, I understand that your email's not working. I'm so sorry for you. Have you done these 3 things? And that they can read that before they submit the ticket. So that reduces the amount of tickets that I receive for common problems. In addition to not everybody having ticketing system access, because they can phone a friend or ask their supervisor first, and those supervisors are trained in first level incident response troubleshooting.
One thing I'll mention is moving from one system to another can also be a real bag of hurt.
Yeah.
We learned this. We inherited a very small Zendesk instance, and we wanted to move it into ConnectWise when we were sending a ConnectWise. Turns out that Zendesk will export the data, but they don't give you an XML schema.
Yeah.
So you have to build that. And I'm sure that every one of these has a similar kind of gotcha because they don't want to let you go.
Yeah.
So make the decision that you make. I'm sure
it's very critical. To get back to the does the knowledge base work and have I had good experience with it? The answer is yes and no, which is an IT answer. I hate that. Can't believe I just did that to you guys. But the reality is yes, if they can find the information easy, and if it's quicker than putting in a ticket. If it's not quicker than putting in a ticket, you're going to get more tickets. You know. The other thing is I go to each and every one of my users and I say, you know, when they come and find me or whatever, and I have a relationship with them, and I say, you know what? If it takes longer to put the ticket in than it does for me to fix it, there's a negotiation. There's a negotiation there. I'm not going to make them put in a ticket for something that'll take me 30 seconds to fix. And an example of that is their phones have this off the hook with the headset, and they forget to release the receiver so go to answer the phone. They keep hanging up on everyone because they don't know that when there's been an outage, they have to release the receiver. And so their phone's not working, you know? And so I tell them, you know what, just come find me. This is what I'm going to do. And they laugh, and then next time they know how to do it. And so I use those in-person opportunities for things that are less than 5 minutes to educate the users. They don't put a ticket again for that. I don't want any repeat. You know, so now next time they come, they say, my phone's not working, and I did the thing, and it's still not working. Okay, let's have a conversation about why that's not working.
So maybe I'll just start with the first. The prioritization that you were talking about earlier in your presentation, it's really important to have in your ticketing system. You use it quite a lot. I would say the one thing that's even more important is understanding what the priorities are for your specific business units. So for example, I have a group of people where if their email's down for 4 days, low priority. Doesn't matter, we don't use them. And that's just how their business works. It's the design department, exactly. Slack's down for 6 seconds, it's urgent, we cannot work. If they can't get to fonts, it's urgent, we can't work. So part of that setting up and negotiating the term you just used with your business units, is understanding what is urgent, what is high, what is low, and it might be totally different than what anyone else in the business thinks or agrees with.
That's absolutely right, and that's a really good point. I appreciate this so much. Because in a ticketing system, you have a default priority for all ticket submission. You set the default priority as 1, and then each ticket you have an opportunity to save a priority different, to upgrade that priority. So all tickets default priority on creation is 1, and then if I have a ticket that's like network problem or hacker or something, security, then that ticket submission option is a 3 or a 2, whatever it is that's been negotiated across the organization. So the default is 1, not 2, which is out of the box. It's 1, and then you change your priorities too. You can have a range from 7 days, 4 days, 3 days. Your priority 1 can be 14 days, it can be 7 days. You set that parameter, and you decide amongst yourself. The other thing that I'm going to say is if you have control over implementing a ticketing system, don't fall into art by committee. Okay? I can't stand art by committee. That's when I say, I understand that you're the VP of such and such, but I was hired to do this job. I appreciate, respect your opinion. We're going to start with this because it's a decision, it's a choice. It might be wrong. We can change it later, except it's a location. We all have to agree on that. Everything else, like priorities, what things should be called, what department the person is in, all that can be negotiated. So we're going to start here, just so that we can keep moving. And if we need to change it later, we'll change it later. We'll add another ticket for that type of request. We'll delete this type of that, you know? Yes, another question, sorry?
Yeah, so when talking about priority, I work at a medium-sized organization, so
What's medium?
like 60 users.
Okay.
And it includes remote offices, so there's like 4 remote offices that each have like 2 to 5 people, and then San Francisco has like 50. And so we sort of I'm sort of designing or changing our ticketing system right now. The IT team is like 2.5 people.
Yep.
So we want people to assign their own priority somewhat, and I just wanted to know what your opinions are of it, like what, is that a good or bad idea? Like what would you consider? Because some of the things that like people come in and they'll say like low priority, like we were wondering if you guys could, you know, do this to the distribution list. Like that's not immediate, right? But it's like something that we're gonna do in the system versus like my Excel won't open and I'm on the finance team or whatever.
Right.
So like what do you think would be the pros or cons of having people assign their own priority to tickets? And I'm talking like very short form, like, hi, low priority, this is my issue, submit.
Right. Well, okay, so we had that in ServiceNow, people could assign their own priority. And low priority for me does not mean the same as low priority for someone else. So I don't recommend the ITIL framework for letting them select priority. Because, like I said, I can change it on the back end. My low priority can be 3 days, my low priority can be an hour. And I've worked at a company where, you know, that was true, you know? So, a software company, a SaaS company, like, things are serious if anything's down for any minute at a time. Your whole tech support team, it's like within 5 minutes you have 150 customer calls and nobody can answer the phone. That's, you know, we had a 3 minute, 1 minute and a half, 3 minute instant response window. And so our priority system was a lot different. So what I would recommend is not letting them select their own priority. You let the ticket type that is submitted have a priority, and you decide what that is based on what the IT rules are for your standards for, what is it called? I don't know another ITIL person, but your contract with the user, your SLA. So your service level agreement with the user is you're going to have certain things, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, completed within a certain amount of time. That's the contract that you make with them. So make your priorities that. Don't let them set that priority. But give them a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 7 if you like odds. And say a radio button. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is the priority? And then I have on mine a due date. So users, when they submit a ticket to Web Help Desk, they can click, they can say, this is the absolute last point when this needs to be done. Or if it's a new hire setup or an account creation, they've put in there, like, this is the new hire and this is when they're starting, but I would like for it to be completed by the Friday before. And so with things like that are low priority, I always make sure that I have an option for the user to communicate what that means to them. What's their time frame? And so I keep it in terms as far as the user is concerned, not priority, but time frame. So that was a long end of your question. Your priority is a 9 till thing. That's your determination, SLAIT. Time frame from the user and giving them an option to communicate that on the ticket is what you would prefer to do, I think.
Yeah, thank you, that answers it.
Thank you. We've actually gone over time, but big
Oh.
thanks to Mary.
Yeah.
Wonderful presentation. So, we have lunch? Oh, sorry.
The last thing I was going to
We have break
say, did you turn me off? Is I have a website I set up for this speech called invertthetriangle.com. I have business cards too. And the purpose of this is there's a contact form. Submit questions, problems, challenges, and I can get back to you. So if you go to invertthetriangle.com and hit the contact, there's a web form that you can complete and reach out to me because I'm the only one in my community doing this in San Luis Obispo, and I would love to hear from other people that are doing this.